can't take anything from that guy except his life, but you can take anyone's life. Here's the trip.
His freedom.
What could you take from Alexander? He owned the whole world. What can you take from him?
The whole world.
The whole world. The guy had everything to lose. The guy had to spend his whole life not just accumulating, but also defending everything he had. That was his entire life. Diogenes got to live however he wanted to. Alexander lived how he had to, what duty required of him. And of course, these are two very different ways of living. So Alexander, when he hears Diogenes says this, laughs. And he says, man, if I weren't Alexander, I'd want to be Diogenes. And Diogenes says, I understand. If I weren't Diogenes, I too would want to be Diogenes. I'm not saying it's evil. I'm not saying it's nefarious. I'm not saying that they're planning it's a big conspiracy. All I'm saying is that we make decisions in our lives that oftentimes make us vulnerable so we can't be ourselves. This guy could be and do anything he wanted to be and do. That's the upside to his life. The downside to his life is he had no responsibility. He had no duties. He had nothing to overcome, according to us. But what he did have to overcome, by the way, was the same thing we all have to overcome, which is ourselves. So here's a trip. A person then who has no desire for things, what can you take away from them? Nothing. So you can't take anything away from them. How do you threaten them?
You can't.
You can't.
You don't just kill them.
You can always kill them. But here's the thing: you can kill anybody. That isn't even specific to them. But you can kill anybody. And here's a trip. You might not realize this, but this is 100% true. You can look this up. You don't believe me. 10 out of 10 people are going to die. Everybody dies. The question is going to be, how do you want to die, or how do you want to live? If you have a person, you threaten them, say, I'm going to kill you unless you... Okay. That's the only power you have over a person. Now, if let's say, for example, like one of the dangers of lying is if you lie, somebody finds out your lie, and then they tell everybody you're a liar, and then your reputation is destroyed. That's just one of the dangers of it. If you never lie, nobody has that power over you. They can make stuff up, but they can make stuff up about anybody. You can't control that. Now, if you're a person who let's say you, for example, actually, here's the best way I can illustrate it. It's actually a story about Diogenes. If you go on YouTube and just type in Diogenes stories, there are videos up there, literally 45-minute videos that will tell you stories about Diogenes' life, like rapid fire. It's not like paragraphs of this was the story of Diogenes. It's just little stories that people told about him, about his life, that will illustrate him. So this is one of my favorite stories. This is one of the longest stories, but this is my favorite story. I think it illustrates exactly what you're talking about. You guys knew who Alexander the Great was? You've heard the name before? Yeah, he was great. He conquered the entire known world of his time by the time he was 30 years old. 30 years old. He goes all the way out to India. His troops are finally saying, dude, we can't go any further. We have to go home someday. And he's like, but there's more to conquer. And they're like, dude, we're leaving. So Alexander weeps because he can't conquer any more of the world. He's sad about that. Because the guy was so successful. The guy never lost a single war. The guy never lost a single battle. And the guy governed in incredible ways. I think it's something like there's 12, 13, 14 cities around the world named after him. Nobody named the city after him. He founded the cities. And so you can see how expansive his empire was, because every time he went somewhere, he conquered a country. He established a city, named it after himself, Alexandria, city of Alexander. So Alexander's teacher was a guy named Aristotle. That was his tutor. By the way, Aristotle's teacher was Plato, the guy who he used to go troll. So Aristotle was Alexander's teacher. So Alexander had a lot of reverence for philosophers and philosophy. So the story goes that one day Diogenes is hanging out in the city of Corinth, because that's where he was. Diogenes was captured and taken as a slave at one point. His owner let him go because he was just so annoying. The reason he has a dog with him in this statue, by the way, is because he was called the dog of Corinth. If you asked him why they called him the dog of Corinth, he would say, because I bite people who are mean to me. Literally bite people who are mean to me, and I'm nice to people who feed me, because he was homeless. If you asked other people in Corinth, why do you call him the dog of Corinth? He would say, it's because he just shits and pisses wherever he wants. You'll just be talking to him in like, at a marketplace, and he'll just be like, he'll just squat down and take a dump while you're talking to him. There was a story that a very, very wealthy man hired him to tutor his son because he was known as being a great philosopher. And he goes to the guy's house, and he's like, this is a really nice house. And he just squats and takes a crap in the guy's living room. And he just says, well, in a rich man's house, the only place worthy of crapping is in his living room. And if you understand what he's saying there, you understand something really important about him. So that's why he was called the dog of Corinth, because he acted like a dog in both positive and these negative ways. So one day the dog of Corinth, Diogenes, is just sitting in the middle of the street in Corinth. Alexander hears that Diogenes is in Corinth. He's like, I gotta meet this guy. He fanboys over Diogenes. So him, all of his lieutenants, these big giant guys, full armor, they approach Diogenes, and he's just sitting there in the street, and they walk up to him. Alexander stands above him and asks him, do you know who I am? Diogenes looks at him and goes, yeah, you're Alexander of Macedon, the great conqueror. He says, good. So you know of my wealth and my power. And Diogenes is like, yeah. And Alexander says, oh, because I'm a huge fan, bro. And he just starts like fall apart, bro. I want to bless you with something. I look up to you. Let me bless you with something. What do you want? I'm the most powerful man in the world. I'm the wealthiest man in the world. Tell me what you want. It's yours. And Diogenes goes, anything? Anything. Exactly. Think about what you would ask for if Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk walked in here and offered you anything you wanted. A casino? Yeah, a big mansion? Your own island? Hopefully do the right thing with your own island if you have it. What would you do with it? Here's what Diogenes says. Diogenes goes, I have anything I want, anything. And translated into English, it would be, get the fuck out of my sunlight. Because he was standing above him and they were casting a shadow over him. It was blocking out the sun. He was sitting in the sunlight. This was a guy who desired nothing. He didn't desire for things. What could you offer him? The only things that he owned in the world were the clothes he was wearing, the tunic, a very simple one, by the way, his toga, and he had a cup that he would use to drink water out of the well. Until one day he was at the well, and this little kid came over, leaned into the well, drank water with his hand, and then ran away. And that pissed Diogenes off, and he threw his cup, because a little kid figured out how to live more simply than he did. So he threw away his cup. So after that, all he owned in the world was the clothes that he was wearing. And so I ask you, what can you take from a guy like that? Oh, I could take his clothing away, embarrass him. You think he cared? The guy would pee and poop wherever he wanted. He didn't care. The only reason he wore clothes is because he'd get arrested every time he didn't, because sometimes he wouldn't. So he would. So you can't take anything from that guy except his life, but you can take anyone's life. Here's the trip.
His freedom.
What could you take from Alexander? He owned the whole world. What can you take from him?
The whole world.
The whole world. The guy had everything to lose. The guy had to spend his whole life not just accumulating, but also defending everything he had. That was his entire life. Diogenes got to live however he wanted to. Alexander lived how he had to, what duty required of him. And of course, these are two very different ways of living. So Alexander, when he hears Diogenes says this, laughs. He says, man, if I weren't Alexander, I'd want to be Diogenes. And Diogenes says, I understand. If I weren't Diogenes, I too would want to be Diogenes. Because he knew there's nothing that you can take from him. And if there's nothing that anybody can take from you, and hear this is really important. If there's nothing that anybody can take from you, then there's nothing anyone can do to you. Take your reputation. Oh no, please don't do it. You have a car, someone can't come along and say, I'm going to take your car. All they can do is destroy your body, but we're all going to die. That's going to happen to all of us anyway. Someone else can speed it up for sure. But what matters is long life? 100 years, 50 years, 20 years? Isn't it all the same in the course of eternity? What matters is not whether or not you die, because you're all going to. It's how you live. And this was a guy who he couldn't be purchased. He couldn't be threatened. Nothing could be done to this guy. The guy gets, I won't tell that story. I'll just leave it at that. Nothing can be done to this guy. And so what is it that the gods want for? Nothing. They have no desire for anything. What do gods eat? It's a weird thing. If they don't have bodies, they don't really eat anything. They have bodies, they eat whatever they want to eat. Well, so they don't have desire for that. what they wear, whatever they want to wear. The point isn't to get rid of everything that you own. The point is to not have anything that makes you vulnerable, that makes you weak, because once you're vulnerable and weak, you really can't speak your mind. A good example of that might be if any of you guys are planning on going to college, let's say, and if any of you guys are planning on going to college and you take out student loans, let's say a whole bunch of student loans, $100,000 in student loans, and then you get out of college, what job are you going to take? Whatever job someone offers you.
Life and debt.
Yeah, now you're buried in a life of debt. And your boss comes to you and says, need you to work Sunday. And you're like, oh, I can't. My daughter has a softball game Sunday. Or guess what? You're missing the softball game because you're going to have to work because you can't afford to lose that job. Somebody has something over you. And I'm not saying it's evil. I'm not saying it's nefarious. I'm not saying that they're planning. It's a big conspiracy. All I'm saying is that we make decisions in our lives that oftentimes make us vulnerable so we can't be ourselves. This guy could be and do anything he wanted to be and do. That's the upside to his life. The downside to his life is he had no responsibility. He had no duties. He had nothing to overcome, according to us. But what he did have to overcome, by the way, was the same thing we all have to overcome, which is ourselves. He had to be something bigger. He had to be something greater. He had to overcome the weakness of his nature. Because what do our natures typically seek for? Comfort. This guy didn't live comfortably. The guy lived in a barrel, by the way. And the reason he lived in a barrel was because there was a very wealthy homeowner who promised to build him a house. He was like, dude, Diogenes, great philosopher, I'm going to build you. You shouldn't live on the street. I'm going to build you a house. So he promised to build him a house. Diogenes was like, oh, dope, I'd love to have a house. The guy never built it for him. So Diogenes, in order to embarrass the guy, went and got a barrel, and built a barrel that someone had thrown away, and he lived inside the barrel. And that was an embarrassment to the guy who promised him. And every time people would walk by, why does he live in a barrel? Oh, because so-and-so promised to build him a house and never did. That was, he's not a man of his word. It ended up ruining that other guy. He ended up having to leave town over all of it because he became known as a guy who didn't keep his word. Diogenes didn't have to go around and slander the guy and attack him and burn down his house and that. All he had to do was tell the truth about him. What could you do to him? Some people, the worst thing you can do that would destroy their lives is to tell the truth about them. Some people, the worst you can do to them is, well, there is no worst. You can lie about them, sure, but that can happen anyway. So, to be a god is to want nothing, to not desire anything. It's like I was talking with last class about it. I won't say much more about it, but I was watching this debate thing over the weekend. It was interesting. It was about money, but the gist of it is, I'll ask you this question just to kind of think about it yourself, and how you answer this question will say a lot about you, and a lot of things about your life. If someone came along right now and put $1 million in your bank account, tax-free, all yours, IRS said all you, don't worry about it, blah, blah. Stop and think about it for a few minutes, what you would do with that money. There's a couple of ways of answering that question. What was it? 1,000 cheeseburgers. And now you still have 999,900.
I'll go gambling.
Go gambling with it. Buy a car with it. Buy a house with it. Buy. One of the worst things that could happen to you in life is that you would get money then. If at 16, it's understandable to have that mindset. To be 26 and have that mindset, to be 18 even and have that mindset is a problem. What's the other mind? The mindset of, if I had $1 million, I would buy this, I would buy that, I would buy this, I would buy that. If instead, to a church, better yet, this is the better mindset. If I had $1 million, frick, I would find out how I could turn that million into 3. And then how I could turn that 3 into 10. And within 20 years, turn that 10 into 50. And then what would you do with $15 million? Here's the thing. You don't even know. Let me explain. Elon Musk, anybody know how he made his money?
Tesla.
No, not even Tesla. He started PayPal. He helped program PayPal. That was his thing. He sold PayPal. It was a good amount of money, but it wasn't like $1 billion or whatever it was. He sold it for a few million. I can't remember how many it was. You can look it up. It's like a few million or 10 million. It was something like that. It wasn't a whole bunch of money. but it was all the money he needed. Do you think that Elon Musk sat there and was like, man, someday I'm going to develop software that will help people buy things online? No, he sat there and said, I bet I could probably come up with a product that would help people to buy things online. Why? What's Elon Musk's ultimate goal? Unless you know, you don't follow what he's doing. He wants to colonize Mars. Why? Because he knows that if there's an asteroid headed for Earth and hits us, it could wipe out all of humanity. We've had those asteroids before. Elon Musk is worried about that. Everything, literally everything the guy does is geared towards trying to terraform Mars. In other words, convert Mars' atmosphere, convert the environment, so that someday we could actually move there if we had to. Elon Musk's goal in life is to save humanity if necessary. Everything he does. Why did he start PayPal? Because he really wanted to do that. He knew that with the money he got from PayPal, his next thing was work on saving the planet. How did he work on saving the planet? Electric cars, Tesla. People liked it. People bought a whole bunch of Teslas. Why did he build Tesla? Because he wanted to build SpaceX someday. Why does he want to build SpaceX? Because he wants to colonize Mars. So I ask you again, why did he come up with PayPal? Because he wants to colonize Mars. Follow? That's his thinking. That's his long-term thinking. He wasn't saying, I'm going to start PayPal and I'm going to buy a Porsche. He said, I'm going to start PayPal so that someday I can save humanity. Whether you like the guy or not, whether you like his politics or not, whether you like his personality or not, understand that that's what he's working towards. That's the long-term thinking of people like that. That's why I said, if you get $1 million and your immediate response is, I would buy this and buy that, that money is gone by Friday. But if you use it well, that money could save humanity someday. Two very different approaches. Elon Musk, can he buy a Ferrari if he wants one? Yeah, he could buy one for every day of the week if he wants one. Does he want one? No. He doesn't want that at all. He wants to save humanity. By trying to save humanity, what comes along with that? Oh, here's a Ferrari. Dope. I can drive that on my way to the factories. We're building the rockets to save humanity. He doesn't care. Cars are nice, of course. That's not his goal. His goal is something much larger than that. And so, having said all that, the privilege of the God is not to want anything, because then you can pour everything that you have into the things that you actually are geared towards, all of the things that your actual goals are. What's intended. So, questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques?
All on black.
Yeah, exactly. Take the whole million, put it on black, you're a coward.
What about
Cheeseburger? Double zero.
What about 5,000?
Double zero is 42 to 1. Black is 50-50. What's that?
What about 5,000 on red?
Did you just flex?
No.
Did you just sit there? I saw you look at it, bro.